velvet shadows, borrowed kisses. The first time I noticed the perfume, it wasn't on my wife. It floated up from a hotel keycard envelope left on our entry table, a thin paper sleeve with our boutique's logo, my boutique's logo stamped in copper foil. The scent was citrus over smoke, the kind that makes you lean in before you know why. The card inside was unregistered, no room number written on the line, just the soft weight of access. "New stationery?" Mara asked when she slipped out of her heels, kissing my cheek in a way that brushed and retreated. She's a chef, the kind who can tell time by the way sugar smells when it falters. Her hair was up with a pencil. Her mouth glowed with the dark berry she wears when she wants to be believed. "We changed vendors," I lied, though we hadn't. "You're late." She shrugged toward the kitchen. "Taste testing with investors," she said. "Oysters, 4 kinds of butter, more opinions than plates." She vanished into the clink of glass and the rush of tap water, leaving the card between us like a coin on a bar that neither patron claims. I managed the night at the Delphine, a 6-story flirtation with velvet and shadow 2 blocks off the river. We sell a version of privacy dressed as luxury. Dim lamps, soft carpets, the sound of ice in crystal, and a lobby piano that knows how to hush a room without scolding it. If your confession has a favorite color, the Delphine knows which lampshade to use. At midnight I was back under those lamps. I watched couples become silhouettes and silhouettes become secrets. A new singer had started that week, a woman named Ria with a voice like a late train, low, steady, arriving whether you're ready or not. When she sang old standards, the room leaned in and practiced breathing. During her break she wandered to the desk, her silver dress holding the light like a quiet promise. "You're Oliver, right?" she said. "The man who knows everyone's favorite drink before they do." "Occupational clairvoyance," I said. "Ria, how's our piano treating you?" "Like a gentleman," she smiled, "which is a rare instrument." She tapped the bell with one careful fingertip and lowered her voice. "Is it true the 4th floor is where all the damage happens?" "The 4th floor," I said, "is where the lighting is forgiving." "And where forgiveness is lighting," she teased. "You've met the Delphine." She left a card on the marble, a matchbook from a restaurant Mara consulted for last spring, a black swan embossed in gold. For a second, I forgot how to perform basic face. Ria noticed the flicker and filed it away with the professional grace of a woman who spends her nights reading a room. The next day I found the same matchbook in our bathroom drawer, tucked under Mara's hair ties. Not proof, not even a breadcrumb, but the crumbs were teaching me the shape of the loaf. When she showered, steam pressed against the mirror like a hand, blurring our reflections into a single uncertain animal. She came out wrapped in a towel, skin flushed with heat, the dark berry replaced by the clean pink of her mouth. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "And there are 1,000 answers that can set a house on fire." I chose nothing and felt its heat anyway. Work makes it easy to pretend you're just tired. I pretended for 3 days. Room 415 requested more ice. 312 asked for a different pillow. 509 left behind a silk scarf that smelled like the inside of a secret. I logged it, bagged it, put it on the shelf of the unclaimed. At 2 in the morning, the desk phone rang with that particular hesitation that means a favor is about to arrive. "Hi," a woman said. "I'm expecting a guest. If she asks for me, could you tell her to take the service elevator?" "Name?" I asked. "Just tell her L," the voice said, and my name shot through me from the inside out because Mara's texts to me always began with L, for love, a private joke carried from the early days when we thought we were clever. The call clicked off before I could do anything wise. I put the receiver down as if it could bruise. The Delphine has a way of showing you exactly what you ask for if you ask it with the wrong silence. I walked the fourth floor with a tray of bottled water I didn't need to deliver, and listened to the carpet tell me nothing. At 4:17 a.m., I remember the digits because they looked like the number whispered in a fever. The elevator opened, and a woman stepped out wearing a blue coat that skimmed the top of her thighs and a perfume I recognized from an unmarked keycard sleeve on my entry table. She was Mara, but her lipstick was a cousin to my wife's dark berry, a brazen kiss at the center of a pale mouth. She knocked on 412, 3 quick taps and a pause. The door opened a careful width. I heard a low laugh that was not the laugh I live with but knew how to imitate it in the dark. And then the door closed and the hallway was a throat swallowing. I didn't play hero. I didn't slam my fist against wood and ruin the rest of my life in one ugly scene. I went back to the desk and wrote in the log that 412 had asked for more towels, and that they were delivered at 4:25 a.m. It wasn't true exactly, but it made the night orderly, and sometimes order is the only thing that keeps a man from breaking his good glassware against the wall. The morning made everything bright and stupid. Mara whisked eggs with the wrist of a woman signing her name. She wore that dark berry again, a small shield. "Dinner tonight," she said, placing a plate in front of me like a truce. "No investors, no menus, just us." I agreed because I am not immune to mercy, even counterfeit. That evening, Ria sang a song the lobby hadn't earned yet, something newer, something that sat higher in her throat like truth. During her break, she leaned across the counter, close enough for me to count the tiny silver stars at her collarbone. "You look like a man practicing the words he's afraid to say," she murmured. No one else could hear through the velvet around us. "What would those words be?" I asked. "Which door?" she said. "And what if it's already open?" I laughed because I needed to do something that wasn't hurting. She watched my mouth like it was a map. "I'm not propositioning you," she said, and a smile traced the denial. "I'm just telling a fellow night person that I recognize the weather in his eyes." "What weather is that?" "Thunder without rain," she said, and let silence pat my shoulder. I stayed late after my shift, not because anything needed me, but because the lobby felt honest about being dishonest. At 3:30 the elevator sighed again. The blue coat rounded the corner. Same door, same rhythm, 3 knocks and a pause. I could have let the moment play the same. Instead, I took a pair of room service menus and drifted down the hall, the way managers do when they're pretending to be busy. The door to 412 opened on the security chain, a sliver of face, not Mara, but a man's voice from inside, lower than mine, said, "You're late," and the woman smiled in a way that made late look deliberate. She slid in. The chain clicked. I stood there with 2 pieces of glossy cardboard in my hands like a man about to surrender. On the way back to the desk, I passed the service corridor and caught my own reflection in the skinny window of the door. Unshaven, tie loosened, one shirt button undone like a small confession. I thought of Mara's pencil in her hair, the scent of smoke over orange, the empty hotel sleeve on our table, and I knew what I would find if I looked too closely. When I got home at dawn, the apartment was quietly awake. The window over the sink held the city like an unmade bed. Mara's coat was thrown across a chair, an arrangement she would have scolded me for, which meant she wanted me to notice it wasn't like her. She poured coffee with 2 hands like it might wriggle away. "You're up early," she said. "I'm not up," I said. "I'm still the night." Her gaze flicked to my undone button and back. "Are we okay?" she asked, and I understood the question. "Do you know?" "Let's have dinner tonight," I said, "for real." At the Delphine that afternoon, I finally did the thing I had not let myself do. I checked the registry. Room 412 was booked under a name I didn't recognize, with a phone number I did, not the digits I texted. The other phone Mara kept for the restaurants, the one that lived in her coat pocket and rang in Italian or French or the bright language people use when they plan beautiful places they can't afford. I closed the ledger and breathed the way swimmers do when their lungs argue with the water. That night, dinner was candlelight and slow plates, and a bottle chosen for its ability to make two people believe they're the only two people. Mara wore an off-the-shoulder dress the color of good plums. Her collarbones were small moons. The pencil had been replaced with a silver pin, the kind you buy for yourself when you like the way temptation looks in a mirror. We laughed at a joke about a waiter who kept appearing only when we said the word fate. And I loved us inside the joke the way I loved us when we used to stay in bed on Sundays learning each other's weather. We didn't mention the Delphine. We didn't mention 412. We were two people rehearsing the version of us that deserved to be believed, and we were good at it. On the walk home, I kept our hands clasped as if pressure could teach truth. At the door, she pulled me close and kissed me like a woman apologizing without language. It was soft at first, and then it was. Her mouth opened. Mine answered. Her palm flattened over my sternum like she was checking to make sure the engine still ran. We stumbled toward the bedroom and stopped of our own accord. It wasn't a moral decision so much as a recognition. What we were about to do would be a bandage over an artery. We stood forehead to forehead and relearned how to breathe. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Me too," I said, and we put the night away without breaking it. In the morning, she left early with a kiss for my jaw and a promise to text me a picture of the new tile samples. I watched the door close and felt something quiet unclench. When I reached the hall, Serena, the pastry chef across from us, who sometimes fed me stray eclairs when my eyes gave me away, was kneeling to tie her shoe. She looked up and saw everything. "Hey, Oliver," she said softly, "you want a croissant to go with that expression?" "I'd need 6, I said, trying to smile with just my eyes. She laughed and pressed a warm paper bag into my hands. "The trick with laminated dough is the patience between folds," she said. "Touch too much and it gets tough. Touch too little and it never becomes what it could." I carried the sentence like a talisman back into the day. At work, Ria sang a song I didn't know the words to yet and watched the door like she was expecting news. When I told her I was taking my break early, she raised one eyebrow and slid off the piano bench. "Rooftop," she said, and we climbed the service stairs to where the air makes even bad ideas seem fresh. The city lay around us like a cat pretending not to care. Ria stood near the ledge, the wind lifting the hem of her dress in a whisper. I stood closer than I should have and farther than I wanted. We watched a gull decide and undecide the same thing 4 times. "I'm married," I said, which was not new information but had become a confession. "And I'm not your solution," she said, kind. "But I can be your alibi for escaping the lobby for 10 minutes. We laughed and then didn't. She touched my sleeve with 2 fingers, a light knock, not asking for entry. "If you ever need to stand still in a room with someone who won't make you lie to yourself," she added, "you know where I sing." The door chimed behind us. A gust of piano floated up. For a second, the distance between her mouth and mine felt like a sentence we were both pronouncing correctly. I didn't close it. She didn't either. The restraint felt like heat held between 2 palms. "Tell me when you need me to stop being brave for both of us," she whispered. "Not yet," I said, and the yet turned the air electric. 2 nights later I saw them, not through a peephole, not behind a chain. In the lobby, like a story that had chosen daylight because it no longer required discretion. Mara wore the blue coat. The man with her was the investor from Spring, the one who said truffle oil like forgiveness. He kept his hand at the small of her back as they crossed the rug. My body went so quiet it felt like a camera. Mara's eyes flicked up and caught mine. A static crossed her face, brief and bright, like when a radio slips past the station and finds a voice before it loses it. She stopped. He took another step and turned, confused. She said something that rearranged his posture into regret. He looked at me the way men look at themselves when a mirror gets honest. He walked to the door and left without touching her. Mara came to the desk with both palms open. "Oliver," she said, my name naked and unhelpful. "We can talk upstairs," I said, and the elevator carried us like a threat we were too tired to outrun. In 606, empty, clean, a room between reservations, we sat in two chairs that faced each other as if they posted rules. She told me the story I already knew, but with her voice, which made it both unoriginal and true. There was hunger that had nothing to do with food. There was the way a new mouth can make you feel like a different ending is possible. There was the thrill of being someone's idea at 2 in the morning. There were apologies that arrived exactly on time and were thus almost useless. "I don't know if I love him," she said. "I know I liked who I was with him. That feels like the same thing when you're under those lamps." "And with me?" I asked. She looked at my hands like they might explain me. "With you," she said, "I am seen. Sometimes I wanted to be believed more than I wanted to be seen." We sat there in our best clothes and felt the world adjust. The room had that expensive quiet that sounds like money keeping secrets. Mara reached across the table but didn't complete the distance. Her fingers stopped a breath away from mine, heat visiting but not staying. "I can't ask you to forgive me," she said, "but I can ask you to tell me the truth faster than I told you mine." "The truth," I said, "is that I want to be touched by someone who is not performing a version of herself for me." She flinched like I'd ruined a perfect plate with the wrong herb. Then she nodded, which was worse. We stood like people at a window with no view. We didn't decide everything in that room. We decided enough to step away, to be kind to the home we built as we dismantled it, to let the lawyers name the things we didn't have the language to. In the elevator down, we didn't touch. In the lobby, Ria's song slowed like a heartbeat learning a new rhythm. Mara kissed my cheek, soft, careful, a benediction that burned. After my shift, Ria and I didn't go to a room. We went to the small staff library behind the bar where the recipe books live and the couch pretends to be a confession booth. We sat until the song and the walls changed. We talked about nothing and everything. Sourdough starters, old records, why people choose the wrong doors because they want the right light. When she leaned toward me, it wasn't a rush. It was a tide deciding high. Her mouth paused near mine, a warm question I was allowed to answer. I did, but slowly. Our lips met the way a match meets a safe place to become fire. No spectacle, just heat and purpose. Her palm found the side of my neck and I forgot every line I'd practiced about restraint and remembered each one I'd rehearsed about care. We didn't undress. We didn't tumble. We let our hands learn the geography they were permitted. The slope of a shoulder, the line where a jaw softens, the place at the sternum where a person keeps their proof of life. When I kissed beneath her ear just once, she exhaled my name like a password finally used. We broke apart before we needed to regret not breaking, and the self-control felt like permission, not punishment. "Thunder," she murmured, forehead to mine. "With rain," I said, and smiled into the space between us. The next morning I brought 2 coffees to the roof. I watched the river pretend to be new. I texted Mara a picture of the sky and wrote, "For the record, it was always beautiful." She sent back a heart, then a lemon, then a tiny flame because she is still herself even when it hurts. I tucked my phone away and leaned against the parapet. The city breathed. Doors opened. Somewhere below, a singer warmed her voice. The scent in the air was citrus over smoke, but this time it didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a promise to tell the truth at every hinge, and to knock softly when I wanted in.